Director Budget Lee Jumba, and we'll be talking about what it means to have a county budget review. And recently we had public participation.
Then we have policy documents that guide the budget process in the course of the financial as they take you through the process of the budget development plan. In this annual development plan is where now we get key priorities and projects as proposed by the public, captured in the document for what will be captured in the next the budget. Then the next document is what we call the County Budget Review and Outlook paper. Because once you've now prepared priorities for the next financial year, you now want to come and tell the public how we performed in the previous budget, which is at the stage where we were last week, after which we'll then move into what we call sector working group reports. These are now priorities from the departments, which will then inform what we call the County Fiscal Strategy paper, come in February next financial year. And then we'll conclude in April by now doing the budget estimates. So we've already started the budget cycle, but it's always important that at some point in the cycle, we inform the public, during last year's budget implementation, how was the budget utilized? And that is now what is captured in what we call the County Budget Review and Outlook paper.
Okay, and thank you for that, because that forms a large basis of what we're talking about today.
Yes.
So last financial year was 2024-25,
yes.
and the next financial year is 25-26. So during the review, from what you've explained,
Yes.
you go over how we performed in the last financial year, and look at what we're going to do in the next financial year to maybe do better, and what are some of the challenges you faced in 24-25. So now my question to that is, can you tell us a bit about where did we do well in 24-25, and what are some of the challenges that you can outline from that?
It's okay. Now, in financial year 2024-25, which was basically our main focus in this document, the key areas we look at when we prepare this document, we are looking at our receipts. Receipts, we are looking at what we had as a budget and what we received. And then the second element, we are looking at our on-source revenue. We are looking at what we had targeted to collect as revenue and what we were able to achieve. Then the last component, we now look at the monies we give to departments, how was the absorption, and how was the money spent. So in a snapshot, last financial year we had a budget of around 7.1 billion. I'm pleased to report that by the end of the financial year, we had received 94% of that allocation, which translates to around 6.4 billion. So we were able to receive all our monies. The only monies we didn't receive are monies from our donors, which form a huge part of also what we anticipate from World Bank and the national government. But unfortunately, we did not receive any monies, and the ones we received were actually not as per what we had budgeted for. So that is what I can comment on receipts. On on-source revenue, when we were preparing the budget, we had a target of around 340 million. I'm pleased to say that the county has put in a lot of mechanisms towards raising revenues, and we were able to hit the target and even go above it by 17%. So that means by the end of the financial year, we had collected 397 million against a target of 340 million. As to regards to the absorption, we had a recurrent budget of 4.82 billion. That is, the recurrent budget is where we are looking at monies that go towards personnel emoluments and operations and maintenance for the county's activities. And I'm pleased to inform that we had an absorption of around 97%. That means we were able to spend 4.68 billion. The only place we had an issue was development, where the budget was 2.29 billion and we only spent 1.33 billion. So one might ask what may have cost these, and that is now maybe what I'll clarify. What cost these is a huge chunk of our development budget is formed by what we receive from donors. A case in example is in agriculture, where we have monies that come in the form of NAV CDP. We had anticipated as a county that last financial year World Bank was going to give us 158 billion, but out of that we only received 27 billion. We had also anticipated to receive close to 184 billion for FLOCA, that is a program for climate change under the Department of Environment, out of which we only received 24 million. So that means a lot of monies that we anticipated to receive from grants did not come. So that is what informs the low absorption as to regards the development budget.
Okay.
Yes.
And now, just as a follow-up to what you mentioned, one may ask, we collected and we had 17% more than what we had budgeted for on-source revenue. So what happens to this extra money? And for the development programs that did not receive their full budgets, how are they then paid for, or what happens to the deficits that you have in that?
As to the collection, you know, we have a number of revenue streams. In total, we have close to around 44, 45 revenue streams. But the best performing revenue stream, as we all know, is the health department, where we receive monies for SHA, that is the social health. We collect as they spend.
Okay.
So we are hoping that going forward, these collections will even go higher and improve the operations of the hospital. As for the departments that did not receive their full funding, when you're planning for donor funds, you do a work plan which sets out activities that you're going to do. So you will only be able to implement these activities once the monies come. If the monies do not come 100%, you'll only implement part of the activities in the work plan.
Okay.
But it does not mean that these funds will not come. I think there was an issue in the National Treasury. So we anticipate that in this financial year, what we didn't receive last financial year, we'll be able to receive in this financial year.
Okay.
Yes.
So when that is received, that is when now
they will
they are being implemented.
The other activities,
okay.
Yes.
And then now, one of the things that was mentioned was also that agriculture, MSMEs, and infrastructure are key growth drivers. So what are some of the specific interventions that you've put in place now for 2025-26 to improve this further?
To improve this further. Now, for 25-26, if you want to look at some of the strategies that we've put in place, you go to now a document we call now the Annual Development Plan for this financial year that was prepared last financial year.
Okay.
As I've told you in the budget cycle, the Annual Development Plan we've prepared this financial year is for 26-27.
Okay.
So for 25-26, that one was prepared last financial year. And maybe just what I can advise is, if people can also access the document that is on the website, they can be able to read it in detail. But some of the interventions that we've put in place to ensure that we get these funds. One, there are monies we used to receive for the Department of Transport, the Road Maintenance Levy Fund, which I'm pleased to report that after a long court battle, the National Assembly was able to let the money go. So we are anticipating to receive those monies, which will come a long way into boosting the department's ceiling. For agriculture, we've ensured that in as much as they receive donor funds, from our equitable share, we are also able to donate some of those funds to support those World Bank programs. So we do not necessarily depend on the World Bank funds. So if they come, well and good. If they don't, we set aside an allocation to ensure that those programs are able to do what? To continue. And then for MSMEs, I think a good allocation has been put towards what we call the cooperative fund. We are hoping that the necessary legislations will be able to be completed in order for this to do what? To pick up so that we can see our cooperative movement do well in the future.
Okay.
Yes.
And now let's talk about pending bills. This is something that most of our audiences usually raise. How do pending bills come about? And now that we've already seen that we keep having recurring pending bills, is there a point where we will stop having pending bills in Vihiga County, or what are some of the focus you have along these lines? And maybe you can explain to someone who does not understand finance, how do you explain what a pending bill is? How does it come about? And how, in your budgeting process, how do you account for that? And how do you create measures to kind of sort those?
So that is something that is at His Excellency's heart. And one of his key desires is that by the time he vacates office, Vihiga County should have 0 pending bills. You know, as a county, we inherited a lot of debt from the defunct municipal council. That is first. That is what I want to report. When devolution started in 2013, and counties took over now everything that was from the defunct local municipal council, we inherited even most of the debts that came back from there. And then during the first term of the government as a Vihiga County, we also accrued a lot of pending bills, which we call historical pending bills, which now when the new governor came in, that is His Excellency Dr. Wilbur, he also had to inherit these pending bills, historical pending bills that went to the tune of around 1.1 billion. As to the other recurring pending bills, we've had issues in the past in the first 5 years of Uhuru Kenyatta's government, we had issues with disbursements where counties were not receiving their full disbursements. So you find out that in a financial year that has 12 months, we only receive disbursements for 10 months. You do not receive the two disbursements, or you receive disbursements for 11 months and you're not able to receive disbursements for the 12th month. So you move into the next financial year with these debts. That is one. So a pending bill is a commitment that the county had made that we are going to pay these after a certain work or a certain service has been provided to us in anticipation of getting funds from the national government. So the service is provided, the project is done, and then the national government doesn't release these funds. So definitely that commitment remains, and that commitment we still become liable to it, and that is what now we call a pending bill in the simplest terms. But right now we've worked on what we call a pending bill plan and a pending bill payment plan. We've come up with a document separate from all the other financial documents that we have, where we've now captured all the pending bills that we have as a county. And then we've come up with a payment plan in such a way that in the next 2-3 financial years, how much are we supposed to budget for in each financial year to ensure that we clear these pending bills, and also to ensure we come up with measurements to ensure that we do not create pending bills in this financial year going forward. So I want to report that the pending payment plan is ready, which will be taken to cabinet very soon and then taken to the county assembly. The payment plan, the pending payment plan basically is just a document that says our pending bills are 1 billion shillings. This financial year we are setting aside 500 million. Next financial year we are setting aside 300 million, and then we'll set aside 200 million in the last financial year to clear what we have as pending bills. So we hope with that pending plan, once it's approved by the assembly and we start implementing it, this issue of pending bills should be out of our way in the next 2 financial years.
Okay.
Yes.
So hopefully, if this is approved in the next 2 financial years,
yes. we shouldn't have any pending
zero
bills.
pending bills.
Zero pending bills.
Okay.
Yes.
And Vihiga County was noted as one of the 10 top performing counties in terms of GDP in the country. And also from what was reported is that we had gross county product of 109 billion with a per capita income of 173,306 in 2023 from this review that you are doing. Now, what does this mean in terms of when we look at now the living standards of people? Because we always know that when you talk about gross domestic product, gross county product, you look at the living standards of people. So have we seen an improvement in this sense, or are people still living the same? It's just that the monies are coming in more.
Sometimes when you set out to make some of these plans, you have the short outcomes, and then we also have the outputs that we indicate and the long-term indicators. So a lot of interventions have been put in place with this government and the able Dr. Wilbur Tichilo, and we hope that 2 or 3, 4, 5 years from now, some of the measures that have been put in place right now, there are those whose impact you will feel immediately, and those whose outcomes will come later on. I want to report that the interventions that have been put in place in the health sector are quite a lot. So we expect to see a lot of improvement in terms of health statistics as we go forward. The interventions that have been put under the Department of Environment, that is connection to people having access to water, is a lot, and it's still ongoing. So we expect the issue of households having access to water and clean and safe water in the near future will also be felt in the county. So all these interventions put in place, and then with some of the business interventions that have been put in place, unfortunately as a county we've not received our allocation for the industrial park in Luanda. We've set aside our own share. Works are still ongoing, but we anticipate to receive 250 million from the national government, which is yet to be disbursed. So we hope that as it comes and the industrial park is completed, it will also go a long way into boosting the county's economy. 2, we have a number of industries. We know, for example, we have the granite factory that is supposed to start. Unfortunately, it has been tussled with legal issues. But once we're able to go through the legal issues, this is another area that I see that is going to go a long way into improving people's livelihoods.
Okay.
So I would say we're not doing very bad.
Okay.
And I'm hopeful and very optimistic that in the near future, we should be able to see vital statistics in as far as livelihoods go up and improve.
Okay.
Yes.
And now that we talk about people's livelihood, one of the key things that affects how we live, and nowadays one of the key things we talk about is climate change. So what can you tell us about how vulnerable is now our economy as a county to such external shocks like climate change? And you've also mentioned delayed national disbursements. So when it comes to especially climate change, because I know this is one of the key things as a county that we pride ourselves in, being at the forefront in climate change, and the governor is also on the climate change committee. So how is our economy? Is it very vulnerable to it, or what are some of the measures that we can, as citizens, put in place to, help mitigate
What
this?
I would say is we are one of the fortunate counties because we are not very vulnerable to climate shocks as compared to other counties where you find these phase long periods of drought or long periods of floods. Fortunately for Vihiga, we've always been fortunate in regards to that. But I want to report, even before we had donor funding from World Bank, His Excellency, I remember in 2018, 2019, we started our process of ensuring that climate change issues will be addressed in Vihiga. And as a country, we committed ourselves that in every financial year, we will be setting aside 80 million shillings to go towards climate change issues, with or without donor funding from the World Bank, which has gone a long way in doing a lot for the county in terms of climate change. So as far as climate change is concerned, we never rely a lot on the donor funds, which is a key funding and a key funding component. But as a county, we always set aside funds or from our own resources to go towards climate change activities. And as I've mentioned, on average, we always set aside 80 million shillings every financial year to address that.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that addresses that. But are there any other, apart from climate change, is there any other external shock that we budget for in our yearly budgetary process?
Last year, we developed regulations for what we call the emergency fund. And we budgeted for around 15 million, which was requested and deposited into the account in June. So we now have an emergency fund, so which takes care of, should we face any emergencies, those are unforeseen events, this emergency fund is supposed now to go and cater for these issues. So we're anticipating that in this supplementary that we are currently preparing, we'll also have an additional allocation towards that fund.
Okay.
So the fund operates regardless of whether the financial year lapses or not. The monies are there.
Okay. Have we ever used this emergency fund?
No, we have never.
We have never used
Yes.
it. And so in what are the extreme cases that you've seen maybe other counties that have had to use an emergency fund?
I've used in cases of drought, cases of fires, cases of flooding.
Okay.
Yes. But even here in Vihiga, we also have our own disasters. For example, a place in Hamisi is prone to a lot of soil collapsing. So that is also an emergency as a county. But I also know the Department of GIS was able to map out disaster-prone areas in Vihiga.
Okay.
So as a county, we're prepared, and the fund is there. The monies are in the account. So in case of an emergency, we are able to tackle it as it comes.
Okay.
Yes.
And now on to our audience concerns. So one of the things that have been raised from the public participation process that was done for this was that it was not publicized, or that people were not aware. So one of the things you've mentioned where guys can come and see some of the papers that are put up, some of the plans, is on our county website. And what are the other places that, these things are put up? Because even during the finance bill public participation, the issue was raised that it was not publicized enough and that most people were not aware about it. So what are some of the avenues that people can get to learn about this thing happen? Because I know it was put up in the paper, but where else can we get this information?
Unfortunately for us, what we normally rely on mostly are our dailies. So we put the advert on the paper, and then we, in conjunction with the Department of the Directorate of Public Participation, we always have a meeting with the Director of Public Participation and the sub-county administrators. And then from there, now the mobilization is left to the sub-county administrators in conjunction with their ward administrators as to who is to come for and to attend the public participation. You know, as a county, there is this culture that at the beginning of his term, His Excellency was never comfortable with is the culture of where we go to do public participation and you have to recompensate people. Initially, the idea was we do public participation at the ward level so that people don't have to move a lot. But as they come, they attend the public participation, then they're given just water, maybe a drink and some snacks, and they go back home. But unfortunately, I want to report that there is no public participation in Vihiga that can take place without you giving back money. So one of the issues we always face and as a challenge is public participation is also subject to funds. So given the availability of funds, is when now a decision is made by maybe the sub-county administrators and ward administrators as to who to invite and to what number to invite.
Okay.
Yes.
So this the decision on who to invite is done by the sub-county administrators.
Yes.
Okay. So are there instances where, say, if I've read the paper that today we're having public participation at the county headquarters, am I allowed to walk in and give my views? Or
everybody is allowed to walk in.
Everybody
is allowed to come in.
Okay.
But the general assumption is that even those people invited by the ward administrators are very key people in the society. So we expect, and one of the things we always encourage them is that for those who've been invited, as you leave this session, kindly go and disseminate the same information where you're going.
Okay.
If you represent women groups, go and disseminate the same information. If you represent youth groups, go and disseminate the same information.
Okay.
Yes.
And now you mentioned the budget cycle, and I remember one of the things that is coming next is supposed to be a committee, right?
Yes.
So do we have dates for that, and who is usually invited? When does this happen, so that people can prepare for that?
The next thing we have is what I said is called a Sector Working Group Committee. Sector Working Group Committee basically is comprised of the following. For each department, it's the department's leadership, that is the CECM, the chief officers, the directors, and then if a department like agriculture, let's say, has 4 directorates, you also have at least one external member, but who is an expert in that field. So for example, if it's fisheries, they should have an expert in fisheries, but who is not now a staff of the county government, but more a member of the public. These are the people who come and now form the Sector Working Group Committee.
Okay.
And then they will also look at what was there in the annual development plan, and then they will be able now to prioritize, look at whatever we had proposed, cost whatever was planned for. You see, the ADP is just a plan. In the Sector Working Group report is now where we expect expertise. We expect, if a department had planned for 10 kilometers worth of roads, from that committee we expect them now to give us a costing. That these roads will cost this much. And that is now what we move into what we call the county fiscal strategy paper.
Okay.
Yes.
And so are people allowed to sit in these committees?
No, for the Sector Working Group committees, it's limited because I've told you the composition.
Yes.
Yes, there are people who are allowed to sit, but they have to be experts in that field from the public.
Okay.
If it's a department like environment that has around 4 directorates, environment, climate change, water, I think forestry, it has those numbers of directors.
Okay.
So the committee will be formed by those number of directors, the chief officer and the CC. And then for each of these directorates, they're supposed to identify a person from the public to come and join them.
Okay.
Yes.
So that if somebody is an expert in that area, then they join the committee. They join
the committee, yes.
Okay. So when is the next mass public participation for
the next mass public participation we expect is in February, when we will now have prepared what we call the County Fiscal Strategy Paper. The County Fiscal Strategy Paper is a document that sets out now to set out ceilings for departmental budgets. Because by then, the national government will have prepared what we call the budget policy statement. In that budget policy statement, it will have highlighted what they anticipate and what they target to collect in the next finance bill, and from that, what counties will receive. So from there, they are able to give us an estimation that next financial year, as counties, we will be able to give you 420 billion. And from that, we already know as Vihiga, from 420 billion, then our allocation will be, for example, maybe 5.7 billion. Now, with that in mind, and targeting ONSO's revenue, you are able now to look at these priorities that were given, that are provided by the Sector Working Group Committee. We are able to look at how departments were able to spend money. We are also able to look at the Governor's Manifesto. And then now we allocate ceilings to every department. The ceilings are normally done in 3 ways. We cap the expenditure on personnel emoluments, which is known, and then we give them a ceiling towards their recurrent expenditure and their development expenditure. And then it's now from there now that reality now starts hitting, because if a department may have wished to do 100 projects, but now we are telling them that we are only going to give you a ceiling of 30 million. Now you have now to go again and reprioritize, and then again go back to the public and tell the public, in the ADP, in this ward you proposed 30 number of projects, which would have required this amount of resource. But because of resource constraints, this is what we are going to get. So can you reprioritize again the priorities you provided in the ADP, so that instead of 5 projects, you suggest only 2 projects that you know will be implemented and will be captured in the budget. So that is now when we anticipate to again to do another mass public participation come February.
February next year.
Next year, yes.
To our audience, look out next year, February. Come in great numbers. We will publicize it as much as possible so that we have everyone's voice heard. Because one of the key issues we've had around this is that a lot of people say that they're not able to raise their issues, and that maybe they learn about it later. So now, tumeanza mapema, February, we will have that from the budget team. And just as we conclude this conversation, we've talked a lot about big numbers and budget, and finance is usually one of the areas as a country to the public. And even for me, it takes time for me to understand what does it mean for this to happen, what's on-source revenue, for instance, what is the budgeting cycle and all that. So what are some of the things you can encourage our audiences? What are some of the ways, the places you've mentioned? We usually put up a lot of these documents on our county website. But if I have questions, if I want to know, here you said we are budgeting for X amount of things, or this department collected this amount, we got donors were able to contribute this amount. These big numbers we talk about, and we talk about gross county product, we talk about this. What are some of the places and ways you can encourage people to, kind of understand this? Because budgeting is a key process in development. It's one of the things that is very critical. Without money, we cannot do much. So how can people get to understand these things, in slowly by slowly, maybe in the next couple of months, and by February, as people come to raise their concerns during the public participation that will be held, and that the questions that are also asked are, that I know what I am asking, rather than I come to the forum and I have no idea what is being said. I have seen numbers, but mnanichanganya tu hapo with words. So how can people get to understand this?
What we normally encourage as we go to these exercises, we've always encouraged the public. If you have any question, raise it through the ward administrator, or raise it through the sub-county administrator. Or if you can be able to even get time, you can simply also come to the county headquarters and ask for the relevant department. So for example, if it's the budget office, you're welcome to visit our offices with any questions you have, and we'll be able to respond accordingly and in a simplified way as possible as we can, because even in our documents as we prepare them, whatever we normally take to the public, we normally try to simplify it as possible as we can. You see, like the CBROP is a 49-page document, but we were able just to present to them a 12-page document, which encompasses the whole document, but in a very simplified matter. But we know it's not enough. So we always encourage that if there's anything and you have a question, go to the ward administrator. The ward administrator can then submit the question to us, and we can be able to respond. Sometimes we've also received members who have come up together, done memorandums, submitted to our office, and we also did a response to their memorandums. So it's not perfect. We are not there yet. I know there's a lot of work to be done, but I will encourage members of the public, if you have a question, simply walk into the ward administrator's office, the sub-county administrator's office, or if you find time and you can be able to come to the county headquarters, please ask for the budget office and we'll be able to answer all questions you have in relation to budget.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. So now that kind of answers a lot of questions. So people should be able to, if I go to my ward admin, I can submit my questions, or if I can come to the county headquarters and I can ask all my questions. The other thing that now, on
the ward admin can bring the questions we respond,
and then we respond, and then they go back. Now, on the flip side of that, the people who want the complex, do we release both because I know the popular version is usually the simplified, the 12 pages, and then the 48 pages is now the more detailed version of the document for the latest one we did. Do we give access to both the 48 page and 12 page, or now which ones do we have? Because if I want the very detailed one, do I still get it, or do I only get access to the simplified?
No, you cannot get access to the bigger document because Audient is not just comprised of people in Vihiga. There are a lot of people who also want to access these documents. That is why it's always important for us to have them on the website. A case in example is we have the International Budget Policies partner that works in the county and normally produces reports on these budget documents we prepare. We have the Control of Budget Office that is also a huge consumer of the documents we prepare. The National Treasury, a huge consumer. The Commission of Revenue Allocation. So for them, you cannot do the popular version. You have to be able to just upload the big document for them access. Yes.
Okay.
Because we have also other consumers outside the county who access what we have through the website, and you'll be surprised.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And just thank you again for joining us today and for answering our heavy questions on finance and for being open to raise even the challenges that we've been facing as a county. And we hope that the pending bills is approved so that in 2 years, as you'd mentioned, we're able to conclude that, because that has been one of the key issues that we've had over the last couple of years. And just as we finish, can you maybe, if you have a final message to our audiences and to our residents in Vihiga who want to, maybe see the tangible benefits from these plans that we're doing, what can you tell them?
What I can tell the members of our public is, first I'll just a small overview. We developed what we call ward committees, where we identified key members from the community who were taken under thorough training at Yala. In every county, in every ward, we have at least 13 members. I want these ward committees to come back alive. The responsibility of these ward committees was to ensure that all the projects being implemented in the ward, they are able to also supervise as a community. Go and see what is being done. If there is a water project, go there, report back. If there is a road being done. So these ward committees should be able to come back alive because they were trained, and that was their purpose. That was one of their goals. But unfortunately, along the way, we also now stopped. But I thought if these can be brought back, I think we can be able to see a lot of benefits, because a lot is being done. A lot is being done by the county. And we also, as a county, we also try to prepare documents that explain what has been achieved. Because other than the budget policy documents, we have planning documents. For example, we have a document we call an annual progress report document, an M&D document, which are being prepared, which are being finalized. And anybody also wanting to have access to these documents can simply walk into our planning office and request for the annual progress report, the monitoring and evaluation report, just to see and have a feel of what has been implemented and what has been done. But a lot is being done, and we used to have those ward committees that were basically formed by members of the public from that ward. They were even taken for trainings and all that. So these were members in the committee identified to know the projects being implemented, to also track and also do their own independent reporting. That the road is being done, it's not being done to standards. They report back to the department, and then they give back feedback, and then certain interventions are taken to ensure that the contractor is doing the right thing. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Us today. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. We had the Deputy Director Budget Lee Jumba with us, and a special thanks to our crew behind the scenes who enabled this program to run. We encourage you to continue asking your questions. We will respond to them with experts from the different departments. And till next time, see you on Friday. It was with me, Shamim Hussein, and the crew behind the scenes. Kwaherini.
Sawa.
Yes.